Hi there, I'm Dominik and I welcome you to my talk. Today we're going to talk about the new Navigator in Flutter. So let me just introduce myself for a bit. So I'm Dominik, I'm a Flutter developer, Flutter freelancer. I'm also a Flutter GDE since this year, and I really enjoy doing mobile apps for several years now. And today we're going to talk about new Navigator in Flutter, which is a new addition to Flutter. So why would you care about the new Navigator? So this is a new thing in Flutter. It's been added this year, and it claims to add something called declarative navigation. So what's the big deal? So first of all, we've been all using these imperative calls in Flutter, like navigator.push, navigator.pop, push and remove until, and so on and so on. So this is so-called imperative navigation. And there were some pain points I'm going to talk about later, but especially changing many pages at once or modifying the navigation stack were pretty problematic in this kind of approach. And with the new Navigator 2.0, we get these two APIs. So the first one is called Page API or Pages API. However, the second one is called the Route or Router API. And the main difference is that this new navigation should be described as declarative. It should be better scalable, and it should allow us for more flexibility and also some package maintainers to create new, more complex navigation patterns. So in essence, we're going to talk about the declarative management of pages. It's not so declarative as we would like it to be, but we're going to go through some of the disadvantages in a few minutes. So we as a Flutter developers, we always wanted to have some kind of a declarative approach to navigation, because maybe some of you know that in Flutter also all the widget tree management is declarative. And last year, like over a year ago, this document was published in December 2019. It was about the new design for the new Navigator. The issue has been closed this year recently, and of course there are so many things that will still need to be improved about the new Navigator, but overall the new Navigator is already available in stable channel. So this document that was attached to this issue is available still online. If you go to the Flutter dev/go/navigator with router, you can take a look at the initial design that was aimed to be added to Flutter. Some things have changed since then, but overall, the whole idea behind new Navigator should be there. Okay, so let's back up for a moment and remind ourselves how the imperative navigation works. How do we manage pages or routes in Flutter before the new Navigator? So first of all, we respond to some user actions or some state changes by just calling navigator.pop, navigator.push, or whatever. Sometimes we even add post-frame callbacks in our build methods just to immediately change some navigation stack. And this is pretty common. I saw this. So for instance, you could have await navigator.push and it would return you a value when you go back. Or you could have push and remove until to change the main page of your application so that you cannot go back any further. And this is all we know, and like this is in all the code labs tutorials and so on. However, there are some problems with this approach. So first of all, navigation is a bit unpredictable, especially in large teams without thorough tests. It can be challenging to understand how the navigation works in the application. What are the navigation state changes? Like if you're on one page, how can you go to the other without clearly like just looking through the code? Also, if you want to do something unusual, like backstack manipulations, or let's say you receive a push notification and want to open some page in response to that, there are some issues with that. So, of course, you can manage this with named routes or with some libraries like Fluoro, but all in all, it's pretty complicated to do so. Then, the typical navigation approach is relatively hard to refactor. if you keep everything in one place and have a common like file or some class to handle this, it's relatively easy. But if you have scattered your navigator.push, navigator.pop everywhere around your app, you will have some issues with refactoring this and also with testing this. So of course, it doesn't mean that imperative navigation is bad. Like, it isn't bad. Like, if you're used to it and if you're more productive with that, it should be good to continue with this approach. However, you can try after this presentation to implement some declarative navigation in your app. Now let's take a look at the high-level overview of the new navigator. So we'll be using so-called pages API for now, and then router widget a lot in this presentation. These are, let's say, major points, major parts of this huge refactor. And with the Navigator 2.0, we get full control over the navigation stack. So you just get the access to the navigation stack directly, or like indirectly, but you can have full control over the navigation stack. The new pages API is immutable. So in other words, you just provide some list of pages, and you cannot modify elements of this list. You can only provide a new list of pages each time you rebuild your navigator widget. This means that you cannot like modify this stack directly. You can keep this reference reference to this list somewhere else and modify this list and then provide a new list. However, you cannot modify the stack directly, so it's called to be immutable. And what is nice with this new page API is that it's backwards compatible with the current approach or the previous approach. So if you are using navigator.push, navigator.pop, and so on, you can easily mix and match both of these approaches. It's not perfect. Like if you have pages which are from the page API in your app, and you push a new route from your page, then this pushed route is called a pageless route because it doesn't have a corresponding page. But we'll go into that in a few minutes. And some of you may ask, why do we even change something that works? And we are used to it, everybody knows it. So here are a couple of use cases that should help you understand. So first of all, if you want to change your navigation stack, then if you want to make a deep link from a push notification, also if you want to handle restoring the state of your app, let's say if you open your app again, similarly as have Twitter or some other apps that you land on the same page. Of course, there is something called restoration framework, which will be used to that, but it's still not ready to be used in production. But however, it's available for you as well. And also if you want to create a navigation library. And frankly, for the last couple months, we've all been discussing how the new navigator should be used. And most of the conclusions are that it should be used as a base for navigation libraries. And there are many of them right now, like Fluro, Flow Builder, Flutter, and at the end I will show you some examples of that. However, like if you wanna, you can still use the Navigator 2.0 directly, and this is what I do in my applications. But if you want, you can also just handle this through some of the navigation libraries. So yeah, the state restoration will come soon into Flutter, and then you won't have to do it through the navigation libraries. So let's have a look at some example of, like this is one of the first examples that I tried with new Navigator 2.0. So imagine that we have a main page and details page in our navigation stack, so the first row. So we have a main page and we just pushed a new details page. And how would we push another page or like insert another page between these two pages in our navigation stack? Of course, this is not a common approach, but actually I had this request from my customer, and I had to figure out how to insert a page underneath my current page so that when somebody goes back, they will see a different page in their navigation stack. And with Navigator 2.0, where we have this pages objects that we manage, we can just insert this page into a proper position in a list so that we just have a new navigation stack. And frankly, this is one of the beautiful things about new Navigator, that is very simple if you cover all the details with some nice API. Yeah. So of course, the raw or like direct access to the new navigator is a bit complex, but if you cover or wrap this with a nice user-friendly API, then everything that you need to do is just to put some page, in this case a material page, with some widget underneath and some key, and then cause a state rebuild. Yeah, so in my case it was a notify listeners, but of course you can just use a simple set state and this will have a same effect. The main point is that you have to rebuild your navigator after you change something like that. Okay, so this is how this looks like in a demo. So I'm opening a details page, and now I'm adding other page beneath with a new navigator, and this is how it looks like. I have a new page underneath my current page. With previous navigator, you would have to do some kind of a trickery to just change the navigation stack. Here, you just edit the list of pages. Okay, let's break down all the parts that are necessary to understand new navigator, because there are some of them, like there are 4 main parts. The first one is navigator, widget itself, then we have a page objects, then we have a transition delegate, and finally we have our main opponent or main thing to understand a router widget. So here's a simple app that is using a new navigator. So we just have a material app with some title, and as a home, we have a navigator with provided pages. So there is a list of pages, and we have also necessary callback on pop page. So let's go through that one by one. So as I mentioned before, the new navigator is available on stable channels. You can use it today. And the main part is that the navigator is responding to changes of this list of pages that we provide. So here I'm creating a new list unmodifiable of pages, or you could use some other constructor, even pages to list would work. So we provide these pages, and these pages are something like immutable descriptions of the route. So you can imagine very similar comparison. So we have our widgets, and stateless widget is immutable. This is just a description of an element. And in the Navigator API, page is just a description of a route that will be created or inflated by the navigator based on the details that are stored in the page. And this list of pages that we have here, these object pages, can be stored anywhere you want. It can be state in your block. It can be state in your change notifier. It can be state in your stateful widget. So it's up to you where you keep it. The main part is that you need to provide new instance of a list on each build. Like if you want to change the navigation stack, you need to provide a new list so that the navigator can compare the previous instance of a list to the new instance of a list, and based on that, it can determine all the navigation changes. Then you have to provide this on-pop page, and this is necessary, this is required parameter, and this is in order to keep your pages in sync. So in this case, you just remove this page from the list of pages, and one important part is here that page can be accessed from a route through its settings, because page is extending settings. We're going to go into that in a second. And after that, you need to pop your route the same as you would do if you would have some, for instance, custom route. And this is something that we don't like to use in Navigator 2.0. However, this is necessary in order to handle all the external changes to navigation, like popping a page with a back button. There's also this thing that I've commented here called transition delegate, and you can provide your own custom transition delegate. This is not required, so this is just if you want to change how the navigation animations are shown, and this decides whether the animation should be shown or not, and in what order should the animation should be shown. This doesn't describe how the animations look or what are the animations. It just determines whether the animation should run or not. Okay, so let's go to the next part of the Navigator API. So we have the page object, and the page object is something that is extending route settings. So you remember a second ago I showed you that you can access the page through the route of settings of route, and now page is extending the route settings, so it still has a name, it has a key, and it's backwards compatible with the previous API. So as I said, page to route is something similar as a stateless widget to element. So it's just a description of a more complex object. The navigator, based on a list of pages, will inflate the routes from pages. So let's say you may remember something called material page route. So the material page route, like something similar to material page route, will be inflated from the material page. So at the bottom of the screen, you can see I'm using a material page, which is a built-in type into Flutter. And you can use this material page to have material transitions. And you can create the behavior of a page by overriding the create route method in your material page or in your page. So you can just, if you want to have a custom transition or something like that, you can just extend a page object and create your own transition, similarly as you would do with a page route builder. So let's have a look at the list of pages you can store. So for instance, you can have a mix and match. All that is common for them is that they need to extend the page object. So I can have my custom page, where my custom page can just extend a page of T. And I can have, for instance, usually you have a child, but if you would like to have a builder for your page, you can do it by just extending a page. And just extending, having a widget builder, but you can also in your list of pages keep different types, and there will be different behaviors depending on which page will be added to the top or removed from the top. The next important part is transition delegate, and this class is deciding how routes should enter or exit the screen. So this is another example to show you. So we have our main page on the stack, and then we have our details page on top. And what we want to do is just to change the details page to the other page, and how the animation should look like in this case. So let's have a possible options. So we have two possible options how the animation should look like. So the first option is that the push, like the yellow page will be pushed on top of the red page, and the red will be discarded. And the other is that the red page will be remained on top, and we'll just push the yellow page underneath and then just pop the red page. So, and by default, you cannot easily say what will happen if you change this navigation stack. However, Flutter provides you with some defaults, and actually the first one will be default. So if you change the topmost page in your stack, so red becomes a yellow, then the yellow will be pushed on top, and then red will be removed afterwards. And this is how it looks like. So I'm replacing this page with another page, and as you can see, the other page remains on top. Again, I'm opening a details and then replacing this page with other page. And if I go back, I'm back at my main page. It means that the navigation stack remained with two objects in the stack, but the topmost page was replaced with other page. And here we have our final boss, which is a router widget. So router is a new way to respond to navigation changes, especially in web APIs. So from the documentation, we know that this is responsible to dispatching of opening and closing pages of the application. It wraps the navigator and configures the current list of pages based on the current app state. So your app state can be stored anywhere you want, in a block, change notifier, state of a widget, wherever. But the router will handle the changes of the navigation stack for you. Then it will listen to the events from the operating system, so back button, new intents, changing of a URL address, and will respond to them and will, for instance, change the navigation stack if it's necessary. And this is the example of router in action. So this is also from the documentation. So in this diagram, we see our app. We have our material app, we have our app state somewhere. It can be anywhere. However, the main part is that it needs to be able to rebuild the router widget. Router widget is keeping the Navigator instance below, and it will rebuild on each change of the app state. So the app state changes, notifies the router. Router is rebuilding the Navigator because the app state notified it. And Navigator can have several routes underneath, route 1, route 2, and like topmost. And let's say you have some action on your button. It could be on pop, like you could just pop the topmost page, or you could add some page on top of that. The main part is that it will have an effect on state. So the state will change on this on tap. So on tap is handled, the state is changed. Let's say it was an event added to a block, or it was a method on your change notifier, but it changed the list of pages that you have in your application. So then the app state notifies the router to rebuild, provides a new list of pages. Router receives this new state and rebuilds Navigator with new list of routes. So this is like a very base of the operation, how it should work. This should mean that your navigation is declarative. However, of course, here in this part around your button, it's not declarative if you have just on top. But let's say you have just a state change. Maybe your user got logged out because of a token corruption. Yeah, this means that your state of your application changed to be unauthenticated, and it means that in response to the state change, your navigation stack will change as well. And let's take a look at the components of a router and all the things that work with router. So in this large diagram, we see on the top, like most right side, we have our router widget. And the router widget is something that is handling all of these things on the left side. So again, we have our app state. You can remember this from a previous diagram. So now the app state is here. It can be anything. We have our router widget. And what we also have is several things. So we have our router delegate, we have our route information parser, and we have our route information provider. Here we have our operating system, so it can be Android, iOS, Windows, or whatever. And we also have this class called back button dispatcher. So there are many things happening, but they are happening in succession. So let's say we have our operating system, we press our back button or escape key or whatever, and this is handled by back button dispatcher, and this causes the topmost route to be popped. The router delegate class is handling this, so it notifies the state about this change, and this change means that there's a different state to be provided to the router delegate, and it means that the router needs to rebuild, and it means the navigator needs to have a different list of pages. So this is the simplest way to describe the pop through the router widget. And then we have our different case where we have some new intent or new initial route provided to our application. This is handled by the route information provider. The route information provider needs to understand what was handled by it and need to provide this information to the route information parser. One thing that is very important here is that at this stage, you change the description of, let's say, your URL address. Let's say you can have an example com/item/1, and this parser will change this string into some kind of object that you want to have. So in my case, I can change this to some kind of a statically typed description of item in my store. And this means that I know that I need to open a page with an item. And this can be async, so you can pull some things from your database. You can make a web request. Of course, not too long, but you can handle some async operation here if you need. And then you need to notify your router delegate about this change. And the same thing happens. So app state is notified. App state determines whether it needs to change something in its state, and it reveals the router. So this circle of navigation or circle of life is something that is really important to understand new router. Okay, so how to use the router? So if you want to use a new router, you just need to use a different constructor for your material app. And this new constructor has a name router. And here are two things that are required. So required is a router delegate. So this part that is very close to the router itself, and also route information parser. So this is the thing that is here. So the thing that provides the information to the router delegate about the current route. And you can also provide your own route information provider if you want, and back button dispatcher, but these are not required. They are helpful, however, when you are using Flutter Web. Okay, so maybe let's have a quick look at demo. So here we have a simple demo. Maybe let me move my page so that you can see the URL address. So if I open my details, you can see at the top left in the address bar that this has changed. Maybe let me make this a little bit bigger. So you should see a bit better the change in the URL address. I can open new details, new details, new details. So this is how it worked on Flutter Web, so you can have this information. But what I can also do is I can change this to, for instance, have free, and this will open my page with the details of free. I can put anything I want here. This will handle that. I can reset to home, and I can also go back through the history here. You have to bear in mind that this navigation here, history, is a bit different, because if I go back here, this is an up bar, it goes back on my navigation stack, and this back button here goes through the history of my application, so I can go back and forth so that I can just change some details here. So this is how the demo looks like. Let me quickly share my full screen just to show you quickly. Let me move back around these things. So you should see my code now. Let me maybe make my font a bit bigger. So this is an example that is available for you also if you want to test out something. So let me just quickly show you. So if you go to this page, Navigator 2.0 example, I will share this link after the presentation. But if you wanna, you can check out this Navigator 2.0 example. There are all things that I'm gonna show you today. So all these things that are here. Also the web demo if you wanna check it out. So I recommend you to see and see for yourself. And let us have a look firstly in the code at on the demo of the page API. So what I do usually is I have some class that will handle all the changes that I have for me. So I'm using a change notifier here, but it could also be as well a block or whatever. And here I'm storing my list of pages. So this is just a private method. What page? So this is just a private list of pages. I'm initializing this with one material page, and I also have a getter to get these pages. I'm keeping the navigator key here because this change notifier is global for the whole application. I'm having a convenience method. This is very similar to what you would have with navigator of context. So I just have a page manager of context, and I have some methods. So if I want to open details, I have a method, and this method is just adding a new page to my list of pages. If I want to add another page beneath my page, I can provide this page and put it underneath. Also, if I want to push two pages at once, I have some method for that. This means that it's not declarative. So you have to bear in mind that this is not declarative management of pages. Yeah, the only thing that I'm doing actually is having this list of page, and this is then provided to my navigator. So maybe let me show you how it works with the material app. So here I have my change notifier provider, and here's my page manager. I have my material app, and I have my main navigator page. So here it is. And because of some bugs or some kind of characteristics of a new navigator, you need to have this workaround. in order to not close your application when you navigate back in your navigator, because you are adding a new navigator below your material page. Yeah. So here's my material app, and this has its own navigator, and now we are adding another navigator beneath. So we need to handle all the back button presses through this navigator. So this is why I'm adding this wheel pop scope. Here, I just access the navigator key from my page manager. And also, I'm accessing these pages from my page manager. So if I go back to these pages, you can see that I'm always returning a new unmodifiable list. So this is always a new instance of a list whenever this is being revealed. And also, I'm having my custom onPop page. And what I do in my onPop page, I'm just passing this to my page manager didPop. And in my didPop, I just remove this page from a list. So this is a very simple approach. There's no magic here. I just divided this into two files so that this is a bit more clear to understand. And if we take a look at our example, and this is very simple. So if I have my application running in a second, and I can show you some examples of how this works and how the navigation stack looks like. So here is my navigator example, and this is a Navigator 2.0 example. You can download this also from the GitHub. So if I open my details, so we can see, maybe let me make the screen a bit more bigger. So you should be able to see the app running. So as you can see, now my navigation stack looks like this. I can another page beneath. So main page, other screen, detail screen. If I go back, main page, main screen, other screen, and main screen, I can push two pages. So immediately I can add two pages to the stack, other screen and detail screen. And I can also replace this page with other screen. So now I have two other screens in my navigation stack. This is very easy. I also made a very simple example. How can you await your result? So I'm pushing a new page and I'm resulting with a true. And you can see that my pop result is true. However, this is a bit hacky. So in the new Navigator 2.0, you actually don't have this very easy way to return your navigation. You don't have this easy way to return your navigation result through the pop callback. So I'm also going to share you my screen again so that you can quickly see how this is done. This is not ideal. If you have any other ideas how this could be done, so I have my pop manager, and what I do actually here is that I just have this method called wait for result. This returns future of bool, and I have a completer, and I just wait for this completer to finish in my resultable page, which is just extending a material page. And if it's a resultable page, I know that I need to wait for the result. If there is a result, I pop it with a result. So if we take a look at this, I can just call set result with a completer. But this is a bit hacky, so I don't recommend this. So actually, if you want to return some value from your page that you pushed, you actually should do something different. Maybe store this value in some wrapping change notifier. Okay, so let's now have a look at the router example that you've seen a few minutes ago. This one, so where I have my page and I can change my URL address and so on. This is using a new router widget. So if we take a look at our main router, there is a lot happening here. We still have, I think, like 5 minutes. So I wonder if there are any questions to that. If not, I will go through the code about the router. Do we have any questions? So I will wait a few minutes for your questions if you have any. But if you don't, I will just go through the code about the new router widget. So again, here I'm using this well-known to you material app router constructor. And I'm providing these two things that I created on my own, router delegate and route information parser. So these two things are required to handle the new router. So if we take a look at our router delegate implementation, so it's just extending router delegate. This type here is the object that is describing my path. So I have three possible pages: home, details, and unknown. And I have just getters that will tell me if this page is a home page, details page, or unknown. And this is the all information that I need, but you can also extend it with something else. It can have information about your push notification. It can have information about some image to be shown or whatever. It's up to you what you will have here. So, but the nice point is that you can actually have statically typed information about your path. I again created something called page manager. This is again just change notifier, very similar to previous one, where I have just a bit more properties. So I have my current path that right now is shown. I have this list of pages that you remember. I have my did pop callback. I have several methods that are required to be handled. So if I receive a new route path, I get this here, and I can see if my page is unknown, I'm adding unknown screen. If my page is details page, I'm adding a details page. If my page is home page, I'm removing all of my pages and just remaining main screen. So this is the logic that I have here. Of course, it can be different. It can be completely up to you how you define your stack based off of this new route path. Here is a very simple example how you can do it. And important part, I need to notify listeners. I can also have some similar methods to the previous pages API, so I can open details. And how I do it, I just set new route path through the details, and so on and so on. And I can also parse my route. So if I receive a URI, I can easily parse this. If it's empty, I know it's home. If it's details ID, I know it's details. So if it's known ID, I will just return details. If it's unknown, I will return 404, and so on. And okay, so let's take a look again at our delegate. So this is again our delegate. I'm adding a listener to my page manager. I think this is kind of some kind of a bug that I need to do it, but I need to, whenever a page manager changes, I need to call my notify listeners of a router delegate, because my router delegate is also having a change notifier mixin. So this also has a notify listeners method. I then have my consumer of my route page manager. So this is just a provider, this is consumer. So this is actually irrelevant. This is just because I'm using provider here. And again, I need to, in my build method, because router delegate also has a build method, even though it's not a widget, but delegate is having a build method. And you need to return your navigator with your navigator key and also list of pages that you want to have. So this is very similar to Pages API. You also need to provide the list of pages. Then this is on pop callback, and I'm just passing this to my page manager. Yes, so there is nothing similar. I'm just waiting for the result of a route. Actually, it will always be true, I think, but this is just in order to be safe. And I'm passing this to my page manager. Remember, settings of a route are actually a page, so I can just pass this because did pop is accepting page, and settings of a route are also a page. I just have a getter for my navigator key. I have a getter for my current configuration, and I'm also passing this call to set new route path to the page manager. This is in order to have a shorter delegate, but you could also keep all the logic here in your delegate. So this is my manager, and below that we have our route information parser, and it has two important methods. So the first one is parse route information, and the second one is restore route information. So if you receive a new route information, let's say from your URL address, you will get this information here. You can parse this, so you get this location, so it could be some kind of a path, and you just parse this with your URI, and then return your parsed information from the app path as the app path. So my method parse route is here, and this is a global method, and I just again parse if it's empty, it's home, and so on. So you saw that. And there's also my restore route information. So when the app is launched or when some other changes are made to the URL, I can determine if the page is unknown, is the page is, so make note that here I get the typed information about my path. It's no longer just a string. This is a typed information, so I can easily determine what this should show. I can take a look if there is a push notification connected to that. I can take a look if there is some other information, maybe about logging out of a user or whatever. This is completely up to you. How are you going to handle that? And then you just provide a new route information where you provide the location. So this is a reverse of that. So this is getting the route information, and this is a reverse of this, so that you return route information. And that's all actually what needs to be done in order to have this this simple example here. Yeah? So you can have full control over how the URL here looks like, and the same way you can have a full control if you maybe provide something strange, you get your unknown screen. Yeah. So if you are more into that, I hope this helped you. Let me stop sharing my screen. And I think I went a bit over my time limit. If you have any questions, I'm very happy to answer them over Twitter, GitHub, or whatever. Thank you very much for your time, for your attention. If you want to learn more about Navigator 2.0, I recommend this design document that I've shown you at the beginning about Flutter, Navigator 2.0. And also there are some libraries I can recommend right now, especially Flow Builder, Flutter, and I think Fluro also has some basic support for new Navigator. So check it out. Thank you very much. I hope to see you again at the next edition of the droidCon, and I hope that you will have a great time during the next presentations. Take care and see you later.